Good morning. Welcome to Story Sunday. I was born in 1959, Houston, Texas, in an osteopathic hospital. I had a pretty good childhood in spite of a lot of things. We didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up. Sometimes we didn't have a lot of food. But my mom she was a very good mom. In spite of all of her misfortunes and then mistakes she made, she was still a good mother. She always made sure that we had food, shelter, and clothing. She did the best she could with what she had. And I believe wholeheartedly someday I will see her again. I spent most of my childhood outdoors. I did a lot of fishing and hunting with me, my oldest half-brother, my middle half-brother, and my sister. We had a lot of fun when I was a kid. A lot of kids nowadays don't do that. They spend time on their games, watching TV. They should spend more time outside because God has made a beautiful world. And I've seen a lot of it. And He's made a wonderful creation by creating this world. See, I think of something else. I spent a lot of time moving. My mom was she was in the medical field for 25 years. She started out as a nurse, doctor's nurse, and she got a position in working in the emergency room. And she decided to change careers. She became a respiratory therapist. She spent a lot of time being transferred for different hospitals, so I moved a lot when I was a kid. And in ways that affects you, because you get friends, you get used to a school you're going to, you move. You lose those friends. You lose contact with them. That is a big part of your life. I had a lot of different stepdads because my mom had a bad habit of marrying bad men. I don't know why. I've often asked myself that question. I've asked her. She don't know. She just married bad men. They weren't good dads. She spent time raising 4 kids by herself. Like I said, when growing up, a lot of times we didn't have a lot of money. And like I said, my mom was a good mom. She tried the best her can what she had to do with. I didn't hold nothing against her. But my middle brother and my sister did. They held a lot of things against her. They held jealousy and hatred for me because they claimed that my mom showed favoritism. She didn't. She loved all her kids the same. I had to grow up with that. That's not a good thing to grow up with. And in I believe it was 70, my mom married a man that was a good friend of our family. And he'd been a good family of ours for years. And we thought he was a trustworthy man, but he wasn't. He turned out not to be another bad man. He did bad things to me and my half-sister. Having something like that happens to you as a kid, that affects you a lot. Affects you mentally, physically. It confuses you. You often think, did you do something wrong to cause this? And the truth of the matter, you didn't. And I harbored hate for this man over 20 years. I wanted to kill him. I went looking for him. And all of this time, God was with me. He was trying to show me that that's no attitude to have. That's no feeling to have towards another person. It's not right. And finally, I realized that. I forgave the man because hatred was destroying me. You shouldn't harbor ill feelings against anybody. It's not a good way to live. In 1969, my mom ran into my biological dad, and They got a divorce because he was an alcoholic. And my mom just couldn't tolerate that. For years, I didn't know a lot about my dad. I didn't know where he was. In '69, she ran into him in a hospital she was working at. And I tried to get acquainted with him again. Even though he had quit drinking, he still wasn't a good man. He ran me down, he ran my sister down. We went and stayed with him. And then 1983, excuse me, sorry, getting ahead of myself. In 1978, I quit school. I graduated 11th grade. And we were still having financial difficulties. I quit and went to work to help support me and my mom. But before that, I had my first job at, I think it was 14, 15. Back then you had to get your parents' consent because of labor laws. You couldn't work only so many hours during the week. So I learned how to earn money at an early age. I remember what it was, 1971, I think it was. My great-grandmother, she developed Alzheimer's. Me and my mom tried to take care of her as long as she could. But she was claiming to neighbors, running to neighbors, saying we were beating her, starving her to death, mistreating her. We had the police out at our house, I don't know how many times. We had to prove that we weren't doing this. It just got so bad that my mom couldn't take care of her no more, so she had to put her in a nursing home. And the nursing home happened to be next door to the hospital my mom was working at. And I got to see her, my great-grandmother, a lot. My mom's real mom died shortly after giving her birth. She died of a ruptured appendix. And by the time they could get a hold of her mom, which is my great-grandmother, she passed away. I'm not sure all the circumstances behind it, but my mom was raised by my great-grandmother. My great-grandmother was a good woman. I grew up mostly in bars because my great-grandmother, that's her business. She owned bars. Her sister owned a bar. So I was around that a lot. One of the times when I was a kid, I forget how old I was, there was a lot of times on Christmas, my mom didn't have enough money to buy us presents. And one particular Christmas, a local church came forward. They brought us Christmas presents. They brought us food. That made a big impression on me, a very big impression. It changed a lot of things in my life. We started going to church. I've been to many different churches. I've been to Baptist church. I've been to Catholics. I've been to Protestant. I've been to Southern Baptist also. I've been to Mormons. You name it. We're trying to find a church that we fit into, and it was good for us. Most of my life I've been in church. My mom made sure we were in church. She was with us. I attended Sunday school. Most of my life I've felt the presence of God. He's been with me. And in 1975, 76, my great-grandmother fell out of bed. She developed a great big hematoma on her head. She went downhill from there. I was in her room the day she passed away. A couple of days after this, I was in my room by myself at night. I got on my knees and started praying. I was very concerned whether my grandmother was at peace. That's when God showed me physically that He exists. I heard a voice, an audible voice. To this day, I have guesses why He spoke to me that way. it was a voice of reassurance. Maybe he thought that's the only way I'd truly be a believer and follow him. I've told this testimony quite a few times in Guatemala. People in the past I've told this to, said I was crazy. I was imagining it. I know what I heard. And to add to that, I'd like to go to 23rd Psalms. The Lord is my shepherd. I'm never in need. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the peaceful waters. He renews my soul. He guides me along the path of righteousness for the sake of his name. Even though I walk through the shadow of the valley of the shadow of death, because you are with me, I fear no harm. And your rod and thy staff give me courage. You prepare me for the banquets for me while my enemies watch. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely the goodness and mercy will stay close to me all my days of my life. And I will remain in you, the Lord, in the Lord's house for days without end. That's a prayer of assurance that has comforted me for a lot of years in bad times. In 1980, I enlisted in the United States Army. I was 18 years old. I spent 3 years active duty. My first duty station was Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And there was a man there, his name was Mark Elliott. We became real good friends. We had a 4-day weekend because of a holiday. He was from Crystal, Michigan. He asked me if I'd ride with him because he didn't want to ride by himself from Fort Campbell to Crystal, Michigan. I did. That's when he introduced me to my wife, Linda. She's a good wife. Mark was supposed to be her boyfriend, and he's supposed to be having a relationship with her. Well, he wasn't truthful to her. He was having a relationship with another woman, and he was neglected to tell her that. She thought they were still in a relationship, and they were not. So, being raised the way I was, I know right from wrong. That's not right. So I told her that. She didn't like me for that. She didn't like me for a long time for that. But what impressed her the most, one day we were there visiting, which would be my middle stepdaughter, Amanda. She was very fussy when she was a baby. And I helped raise my nieces and nephew. I was around young kids. That impressed her because she was fussy. I sat down in a rocking chair and rocked her to sleep. I put her to sleep. That impressed her. She just probably still didn't like me at that point. I don't know. But I got stationed over in Germany, Darmstadt, Germany, and I wrote to her then. And they say when you meet somebody you know. The day I met her, I knew that someday she'd be my wife. And God's let me see in the past that all the situations that led me to Michigan led me to her. He led me to her for a reason. God has somebody for all of us. He pairs us up with, they say opposites attracts. And that's true, it does. In 1984, we got married. We've had our ups and downs during our marriage, but for the most part, we had a good marriage. We've had very few arguments. In July, we'll be married 37 years. And being married that many years, you learn how to compromise. It takes two people to make a relationship. The most important thing is to keep God in the center of it. We have. I've helped raise 3 stepdaughters. One we adopted, Mary, which is Emilio's biological aunt. And what year did we actually adopt him? I forget. Been 5?
It'll be 6 years.
6 years? Prior to that, we had an opportunity. We got a call quite a few years ago from Emilio's biological mom, and she said that she was being evicted. So Linda went and picked her up, moved her in our house. She lived with us for 2 years. We tried to help her. She ran from us. She didn't appreciate what we did for her. She ran from her trouble. She's a kind of mother that doesn't know how to be a mother, which is a shame. She blames everything on everybody else. She's done nothing wrong. Everybody is at fault for the way she acts, for the problems she's had. And she's bore 4 kids. She's lost all 4 of them through the court system from not being a mom. And when we found that out, we had a chance to adopt Emilio and his sister Anna. At that time, we didn't have a proper room for her and him, so we couldn't. We had to back off. Quite a few years later, we had an opportunity again. Las Vegas, Clark County got in touch with us and said that Emilio was in a foster home. They considered us the closest family he had because his biological dad doesn't know how to stay out of jail for not paying child support. His mom doesn't know how to be a mom, so he really had no family to go to. I know foster homes are good. I myself was in a foster home for a while because my mom developed yellow jaundice, and she couldn't take care of her. She was very bad in the hospital for a long time. They didn't think she was going to make it. So at the time, we didn't have nobody in our family that could take care of us. So we went to we went to the foster home first, and then when complications arise, and my mom stayed in the hospital longer than she wanted to or expected to. And one of the men she married, one of my stepdads, she married this man for the 3rd time. I don't know why, but she did. He come and got us. He took us out of the foster home. He took care of us. He lived in Memphis, Tennessee at the time. And the house he had was about a mile from Graceland. I got the opportunity to see Elvis Presley. We were going to school one morning, and he was taking us to school, and we passed by Graceland, and he was coming out in a limo, and people were around him trying to get his autograph. I got a glimpse to see him. That was something. Think of something else to say.
Called to take care of your mother?
I was called a lot of times to take care of my mom. My mom lived up here twice. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a bit of jealousy or not, but her and my mom had a thing between them. I don't know. Every time my mom would know when I got home, she'd call me over to her house. This was broke down. That was broke down. I'm not sure why. To this day, I still don't know why she did it. They didn't get along for a lot of years. And finally, supposed to have been 3 years ago, my brother was taking care of her for about 8 years. My oldest half-brother Otis, and he started developing health problems. And he was stubborn, didn't want to go to the doctor. He said, if I go in the hospital, who's going to take care of you, Mom? He passed away from cancer It's been 5 years ago now, I think. Maybe more than that. I was getting a call from my sister-in-law, Charlotte, that he was in bad shape. He was in a lot of pain. She was trying to break it to me gently what was wrong with him because he was full of cancer. I was trying to make arrangements to go down there to see him before he passed away, but I didn't make it. But I did afterwards. I went down to comfort my mom, to help my sister out around the house. Ever since then, over the years, I've made several trips to Texas to see my family. Quite a few years ago, we went down there again. Me, Linda, and Amelia went down there. And my sister has a lot of mental issues because of what our stepdad did to her. I think she's bipolar, but she refuses to take any medication, and she has a bad personality. Well, she caused a bad scene, not once but twice while we were down there in front of my son, and I didn't appreciate it. So we left earlier than what we wanted to. My mom was having some spells at the time. She was in a rehab center. She became unresponsive. They were trying to get to the bottom of it. They finally determined there was a lot of medication they had her on for a lot of medical issues she had. She was a diabetic. She had high blood pressure, high cholesterol. And all Linda wanted me to do is come down to the lobby and be with him. And my sister got all bent out of shape, come down the lobby, cussing and swearing at her at a bunch of people that was in the lobby. And we got up in the room, we got in a shouting match. They told some of us had to leave, so Linda finally left. I've kind of forgiven my sister for that, but I don't speak to her because they always expect me to call them. That goes both ways. You know, why should I have to call them all the time to stay in touch with them? Why can't they call me? I mean, that's only fair. That's being family. But last time I spoke to my sister was 2 years ago. I called her on Mother's Day. Wished her happy Mother's Day. I haven't talked to her since because I had my brother-in-law's cell number. Well, come to find out, after I talked to her that, we were blocked from talking to him. I don't know why. I know I should care, but I don't care anymore. It's not worth it anymore. They don't have nothing to do with me. That's fine. I have a family here that cares about me. I have a church family here that cares about me. Family is only skin deep. I'm very settled here in Michigan. This is a beautiful state. I'm glad I moved up here. Like I said, God led me up here. He's made a lot of blessings in my life. One, for an awesome wife. He gave me a chance to adopt a son. I'm trying to raise him to be a good Christian man because that's the way children should be raised. I wasn't raised that way. I was in church, but like I said, I had too many different stepfathers and they weren't good men. The only good role model I had was my brother, my oldest brother. He was like a second dad to me. I miss him very dearly. I miss my mom very dearly. And my mom. My mom was a very good role model for me. In spite of all her mistakes, bad decisions, she was still a role model. She instilled in me that serving God was a very important thing in a person's life. There's two things, honorable things you can do in life. Serve your country and serve God. God must come first. Thank you.
sneak up here.
Okay.
We haven't done this ever, so everybody who's done a Story Sunday before this, you haven't been on the spot. But I just want to ask, because I had questions coming to my mind, and maybe you do too. And Ray is a bold enough, courageous guy that he might be willing to answer. But I just wanted you to talk a little more, because one thing that I notice about Ray, and maybe you notice this too as we operate here in family. I said this morning on a little live video I always do every morning that Ray is one of the most kind, compassionate men that I know. When Ray tells you he loves you, Ray means it. Ray loves you. He cares about you. And so, as we think about that, and I think I made mention of this morning too, that I've never heard you, I mean, that was as raw and
As honest as you've been, that
it
you
could
converge on like being direct about something, but you still, you don't say negative things about people.
No.
You truly care about others. And so I wonder if you just share maybe, what is that, where did you learn that? You just alluded to that a little bit about your mom and your brother, or was it stepbrother? Brother.
A half-brother.
Half-brother, there we go, sorry. But, where did you learn that? I don't know if that was even through your military service, just care and respect of other people, but maybe you can talk to that just for a minute.
God,
Yeah.
being associated with church, having people do kind things for us, that makes a good impression on you. I just learned that you treat people the way you want to be treated. Like I said, I harbored hate for my stepdad for a lot of years, and like I said, it was destroying me, and you can't do that. God finally made me realize that that's no way to feel against anybody. And I forgot to iterate on this. In 2004, I was in the Guards, and we were at annual training at Camp Dodge in Iowa. And we got alerted. And I started praying. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know where I was going, how dangerous it was. In fact, it was quite dangerous. That's one thing I'm very appreciative of God. He got me out of a dangerous place. He got my whole unit out of a dangerous place. We were there for a year. We were smack dab in the middle of the Sunni Triangle, which is a bad place for terrorism. We were constantly getting shot at by rockets and mortars. Before I went over there, like I said, I started praying, and even though I got PTSD, there's very few things I worry about anymore. I try not to worry about anything because it does no good. A lot of things you can't change. You should only worry about the things you can change or you can control. He gave me a peace until you experience it, it's hard to explain. He has. He's gave me a peace. Even before that, he's given me a peace. Back in our marriage, I can remember a lot of times when we didn't have a lot of money. Since me and Linda's been married, we've 31, 32 years, we struggled financially. In 2007, I lost my job. I started working at Custom Office Systems in Ionia, and we refurbed office cubicle panels. I spray painted all the parts to the systems. I helped install. I did inventory in my department. I did grounds work around the shop. I drove truck, and that's when the economy got bad. And I took vacation. I got a letter in the mail that I'd been terminated because they didn't need a painter anymore because the economy was so bad. We were losing jobs. It really wasn't worth me driving from where I was living in to Ionia. The men that stayed there, they weren't making good money either. And the first time I went to Guatemala, I wanted to get a tetanus shot, and I heard that the health department in Ionia gives them to veterans for free, and I wanted to get a tetanus shot because there's a lot of metal over there. And God spoke to me. He said, you need to go thank your boss, David Holliday, for terminating you. I did. I went and visited him. I called him up on my life since for 10 years. I talked to our secretary, they were still there. He said, that's the first time in my life that I've ever been thanked for firing somebody. I thanked him because if he hadn't have fired me, I'd still been working there, because I don't leave jobs. I have a work ethic. I got it from my mom. My mom was a hard worker. He was very glad that I stopped and thanked him for that. He was a good boss. I had no set hours. The only thing he required is to get the job out on time when it's scheduled to leave the shop. Until he couldn't afford it anymore, he had a 45-foot boat. It was docked in Saugatuck. He'd close the shop for the whole day and pay us for 8 hours and treat us out on a boat and take us to lunch and dinner. He was a very good Christian man. He sometimes didn't always act like it, but I'm not perfect. Don't claim to be perfect. I make mistakes. I don't always act like a Christian. I should, but I'm human. I make mistakes. But God forgives us when we do make our mistakes, if we ask for it.
How many stepdaughters do you have, and how many grandchildren, and how many great-grandchildren do you have?
I have three stepdaughters. I have 13 grandchildren, by the way.
And how many greats?
I have 2 great-grandsons. It's amazing having a family of that size. Also, I should have mentioned this, and I didn't mention that either. I went through genealogy through Courage of Her, and I was kind of wondering where my dad was. I wanted to get caught up with him, and I found where he lived. He was living in Springs, Texas then. And I found out he died in 81. He died of complications due to his alcoholism. He was a World War II veteran. He witnessed the bombing of Pearl Harbor. He was stationed on the main island. He was in Schofield Barracks in an armor division there. I guess maybe that's why I wanted to join the military. I get it from him. Even though he wasn't a good dad, he truly served his country honorably. In civilian life, he was a draftsman. He also worked for Carnation Milk Company. He delivered milk. 69 when I ran into him again. He was partners with a guy in Houston, Texas. Him and this other guy owned a antiques car place, and they sold antique car parts. I got to sit into a 1932 Rolls Royce, beautiful car. Had plush velvet seats, had a bar in the back, had the trim inside the car was silver. Some of it was gold. They don't make cars like they used to. They don't.
You've had been able to connect with past brothers.
Yes, I have been able to connect with one of my half brothers. His name is Michael. He's a Vietnam veteran. He lived in Columbus, Texas then, and I got his number. I got to talk to him, and we compared notes, and we had the same dad. Just different moms, just the same dad. And to go back, I called my dad's widow in Spring, Texas. She didn't know about me. That kind of hurt because she was very evasive because she was in charge of his state. I didn't want anything. I just wanted to know why the man died, what he died of. Do I have a medical condition I should be worried about, concerned about, being checked? And comes to find out, as far as I know, I don't. But I got to talk to Michael, and he's supposed to keep in contact with us, but I don't know. He stopped talking to us, but you have him on Facebook now? She stays in contact with him. I have a cousin named Nancy Armstrong. She lives in New York. We keep in contact with her. She does genealogy. I found out a lot about my family I didn't know. I got a huge family. My great-grandfather was from Paris, France. They migrated here to the United States, and they became very wealthy in the timber business. that's about as much history as I know. I also got two nephews, great nephews that I didn't know about. I got to talk to. Quite a few years ago, I come home from work from Central Montcalm. There was a message on my phone, and he said, "If this is a Ray Transu here, this is, I forget his name. Wiley is his name." He said, I appreciate a call from you, and so I decided to call him, and he's one of my twin half nephews, and I talked to him for well over an hour. Then a few hours later, I got a call from his brother. We compared notes. Got to talking to him. So
I'm jumping in because there might be, I don't know if anything sparked that you just want to ask for anything further from Ray. I'm putting him really on the spot. We didn't discuss this, so.
no, we didn't.
I know.
But I love you, man.
I know. That's what I was saying. I made sure to butter Ray up a little bit before I then said all these things, right? But no, I don't know if anything. That's putting you guys on the spot a little too. But it's so important for us to share this time. Not all of us get 40 minutes to just sit down and let Ray tell us about life, but it's valuable. You know a little bit more about Ray, and what I appreciate, and this is giving you time to think about anything, just in case you have a question. Ray is a good example that somehow this guy, through all the twists and turns of life, ends up in Greenville, Michigan, and we get to share life with him. Isn't that amazing? We always like to think that things would be somehow linear, right? Like everything goes right in order, our life is just planned out. We start it, we end it, it's all great, and it's packaged up nicely. It's not. It's not.
No, it's
A
not.
lot of twists and turns along the way.
Yeah.
A lot of challenges, and yet we get to be
Crystal,
here.
Michigan,
Yeah.
30.
I got another thing to add to all this since we were talking.
We'll let Ray wrap it up here, unless anyone's got a question.
My oldest brother he left home at 15. He basically raised himself after that. Him and my mom they didn't get along when he was a teenager. Wouldn't listen to nothing. He was bullheaded. I was going to say. Old age. What was I going to say?
No, it's okay. It's all good. It's all good.
I did it. I just lost it. I don't know.
The laughter means that we all get that. So when you started listing all your grandkids and great-grandkids, that explained it all. That our memories are gone. I've got two little people that know my mind.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts? Any questions out there for all of humanity? Certainly.
I remember what I was going to
captured
say.
in the biblical narrative. Okay. Ray's going to wrap it up.
Even though my brother he had bad attitude about a lot of things, and but he cared for his family. I didn't tell my mom after the fact of what my stepdad did because they were having problems at the time. My mom tried to run over him twice with a car. He was younger than her. I don't know how many times we had to run the neighbors because they were fighting, physically fighting. And if I had told her what he had done, I knew what she would have done, and he was not worth her ruining her life going to prison. Because she was a true mom and she protected her family. And if she had found out what he did, it wouldn't have been good for the man. It would not have. But my brother found out about it, and I wish he hadn't have done this, but he took care of the problem. He found him. He beat the crap out of him, made him wish he was dead. He said, if you file charges against me when I get out of jail, you're a dead man. Because what you did to my brother and sister was wrong. But I mean, two wrongs don't make it right. But like I said, I wish he hadn't have done that. But I forgive him, man. He had a problem. I don't know if there's any cure for molesting children or not. I don't know. They say there's not. It's an illness that's hard to rehabilitate. But they do have an issue, and they do need help. And I pray that he got help. And I also especially want to thank God for me not finding him, because they would have ruined my life if I had found him. Because my intentions were to kill him. And that's no way to be. It was making me into a person that I didn't like. I had a bad attitude. I had a negative attitude about a lot of things. And Another thing, my brother had a drinking problem. He had a drinking problem for years, and he'd get in fights. Trouble seemed to find him. I mean, he'd walk in the bar and just drinking, mind his own business, and trouble would find him. And I started praying. I prayed earnestly for 5 years that God would get through to him for what he's doing. He needs to change his life. He's either going to wind up dead or in prison. God finally answered that prayer. It took 5 years, but he answered it. My brother quit smoking. He quit drinking. He quit visiting bars. I don't know if he ever went to church, but he started reading the Bible. He would quote the Bible with me when I called Mom and talked to him. I truly hope that he did find God and that someday I'll see him.
Well, thanks, Ray.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate you sharing.